let's talk about the first 5 entries to the adventure site contest from Coldlight Press, which I'm a judge of. This is not the judging itself, this is just a review process, and I'll try to get through them. The idea here is what would happen if you had a good Book of Layers. Book of Layers 2 is good, by the way. Book of Layers is this good concept of what would happen if a monster lived here that is very unevenly executed. Some good, many bad. Here the idea is what if you had a set of adventures which were really just a couple of sessions at most. Yes, from Coldlight Press, as I say, this is in alphabetical order from the Google Drive where they are saved by Commodore of Coldlight Press, Ben Gibson. This is Oglias's Folly, Flooded Realms Adventure Press. This is Old School Essentials, and the concept is it's about a cloud giant's fishing hole, basically, and here he has got a variety of weird fish in the various ponds, as well as he's got treasure and gold and stuff like that. And he's disappeared, he's dead in fact, and you can get the magical fishing poles, you can get the gold, etc. One thing is, just to say from the off there, this uses a Dyson map, that's fine, Dyson Logos, free maps. I think it's a perfectly good map, and I think Dyson... the concept, of course, here being that it's something you can run in a session or two, and really, frankly, I use Dyson for that sort of thing when I need a map quickly. There's encounters, one every 2 turns. There's 3 magical fishing rods, and there are, I think, 12 rooms, and you can see here, this is good layout, nicely presented, small enough text to fit the Gygaxian demands, at least. The idea here, the limit, by the way, is kind of 2 pages plus a map. Now, that kind of means once you have intro material, 5 pages. So it's not quite the 1-page dungeon, there is more information you're allowed because the map is separated from the text, so it's 3 pages in that sense. Yeah, this is a good layout, good informational presentation, and not too wordy. There's some stuff like there's a chimera who's taken up layer since the cloud giant died. The cloud giant you can find in the guts of Old Bluefin the whale and get the giant fishing pole. There's an offal trap. You smell the kind of offal from the offal room, you get knocked out and troglodytes attack you. There's some good stuff in here. There's not very much treasure. Magic doesn't give XP in OSU/BX. And this reminds me, as does an entry here, which is... the entry I'm thinking is for 7 Voyages of Xylothan, is how translatable or not different versions of D&D are in terms of adventures. Of course, old school versions are largely translatable, but even there's a rule of thumb between, well, let's say basically between OD&D and AD&D, where you have to increase / decrease the level of certain things because leveling, hit dice, etc. are slightly different. This is for levels 7th to 9th, by the way, so this is high level. So the fact there's a chimera here, this is really at the limit of BX, Old School Essentials, but this is in the right level thing. You know, you get to fight a chimera, you get to fight a chthonic octopus, you get to fight a big whale, mako sharks. There's lots of interesting challenges, and some of them have slightly more complicated combat routines, which can be a cover for the wrong problem. But the idea that, yes, at high level, one of the options open to monsters is to have interesting stuff they can do, and particularly multiple interesting things they can do. Though the lesson is learnt badly by later editions, by D20 editions, it is one of those things. And so having these high-level monsters is great. The magic items, the 3 fishing poles, etc., are good fun. And there's a puzzle within this fairly small 12-room space about how you get to different places, how you access different ponds, particularly how you get to the the control tower via a teleporting room. So you have to work that out. This one is not a blowout success or anything. In so much as even for BX, the fact it lacks very much treasure is a problem. It has magical treasure, but in terms of actual treasure, it has chiefly For instance, it has the Chimera has 5,000 GP, 2,000 PP, so that's 20,000. A silver crown, some faded armbands, some ivory chest knights, obsidian chest knights, and a golden tiara. And so all told, that is 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 29,000, 34,000 in one room. So classic end of the line kind of thing. Most of the treasure is located there. There's a few bits and pieces on the encounter tables for when you're fishing and elsewhere, so a bit like Stardew Valley. So there's a problem about the exact usability of this, even within BX, let alone in AD&D. It has a good map. It has some interesting concepts. The environment works. It will feel like a legitimate high level stop off, but it may require some alteration to get it to run in most traditional campaigns. Here we have Xylithan 3. This is Dungeon Module Z3, the Tomb of Rasanatep by Jeff Simpson, who is, to state my interest, a friendly acquaintance of mine. Character levels 2 to 3. Here's some classic Jeff drawing. You can see the advert for Coldlight Press and Buddy Scott Entertainment Group. There's a quote from Gygax about changing stuff. This is for 7 Voyages of Xylithan, which is an OD&D clone, but it's really an alteration. I think most famously for dropping the cleric and creating universal turning. Is the most obvious thing for those of us who do not know the game. And this is another reminder that really when you're adapting, it's going to be, you're also pointed towards Volume 2 of Xylithan, by Oak Spalding, Volume 2, Book of Monsters for monsters. So if you're wondering what the exact rules for some monster you've not heard of are, then you need to check elsewhere. That's fine, but again, there's an adaptability question there. Here, let's get to the map quickly. Here we go. It is it's a 10-room map, small tomb. This is pretty obviously an attempt at the archetypal small tomb. Like, what would a small tomb look like? And Jeff says you could adapt this into part of a bigger tomb. You could drop this into a session, whatever. But what does a small tomb look like? The previous one is high-level Giant Slayer, in that case, albeit there's no giant, but high-level BX. Here you have OD&D functioning, albeit with alterations, and this is the archetypal tomb. And I think here, by the way, we see a strength of the contest that within 2 entries alphabetically, you have people thinking, what stuff do people actually play when they play D&D? These are meant to be played. I should say one thing that the first entry did slightly remind me of Oglass's Folly was Iron of the Plangent Mage, which I've reviewed for OSE, which I quite liked. It was one of the better ones from that release of Adventures for the Kickstarter. But anyway, Tomb of Rasanatep, or whatever his name is going for the classic tomb vibe with a Jeff spin, and we'll just get the text. So it's single column. It is slightly smaller than the previous. It doesn't have as much prefatory material. You can see that's all, and there's no new items or monsters. You're referred to another book, as I say, and there's this is what I'd say is this is pretty archetypal, in a good way. I think this is having someone just attempt to say this is what a tomb would look like in this context. You generate. Oh, this is an example for me of you generate a white. This is not a white tomb, but you generate a white. You check percentage in layer. This is via encounter. They are also in layer. What kind of thing do they have? And you think, well, they've got to have something. Either I can design, and I once did design an entire castle based on I think it was a vampire random encounter. But what happens, especially if it's less powerful than a vampire, but even a vampire, what happens if you're thinking there's an encounter here, it's not on the map, and it is in layer? In that case, you have to generate something fairly quickly, and Dyson helps for that, by the way. That's kind of part of the point there. but also the idea that you want to hit the high notes that players recognise and enjoy. That means that when you do subvert them, it's more effective. And so here you have a spider in a drafting room. The drafting room says there's 9 rooms. That's actually not true. There are 10 rooms, but one is, well, rather there are 9 rooms, but one is subdivided into the true treasure and the false treasure. So it's actually a misleading plan, arguably, based on the map, because number 1, you can see you come up to 10 is number 10 is this one, so you see number 9 is behind a false wall. So it is a misleading bit of data. You've got a trap in one room, you've got a spider in one room, you've got a living statue, animated statue there. You've got the false throne room, which is a trap itself. You have the false treasure room, and you have the main tomb with a big gribbly who is a haunt who regenerates, cannot be harmed by holy water, has paralysis, and is turned into a wraith. A Thoblin, is that a Thule? I don't know. But that's a Xylothon thing, I guess. Yes, so here, HD3, the idea of creating low-level boss undead, I've done the same. I think many people have. You see shadows, I think, come out of this as well, actually. The idea of having low to mid-level top undead rather than like, oh, well, there's nothing, but because I can't have a white for my second level party. There is a leech in one room who has a 2-level basis level drain, which is pretty tough and nasty, and certainly characterises the subgenre, the Xylothon, OD&D. It's a tomb. Tombs are trap and trick heavy. You don't tend to have... This is not always true. Secrets of the Nether City, which I just reviewed, does have like hordes of skeletons. So does Mortuary Temple of Esma by Anthony Huso, a literal army of skeletons. But this is more, here's some weird stuff, some tricks and some traps. This is a tomb. And it ends up with, yeah, I mean, the hidden treasure room has 6,000 silver. I think Xylothon is silver standard, but there's a trap on it. The false tomb has 5,000 CP, and Rasanatep has a sword +1 plus some irrelevant junk and a trap. I think it's probably a bit low on treasure for a level draining leech and a semi-ethereal undead. I think it's very, very good at hitting the pulp highlights. I enjoyed this one a lot, and I certainly think if you're looking for low level tomb, this is a very good example of it. Death Talon Layer by John Nash, BX compatible. A relevant thing, of course, again, BX. So when we're adapting, so far, by the way, we've had 2 BX, one was OSE, and 1 OD&D in the form of 7 Voyagers. You see the sample we deal with. Here we actually have a big site. It's 22 rooms, I think, 23 rooms. This is relevant because most of these sites are 10, 12, etc. This is much more extensive. You can see a very clear map. I think on the whole, which that's one thing. Occasionally, as I say here, the fact that 10 is not actually marked with a number, the fact that a couple of the interactions on this ended up being very slightly opaque to me, or at least translucent, let's say. You know, there is a skill in this stuff, and this is a you know, all of the ones I mentioned so far are respectable, but you definitely find these things that writing up an adventure. I was reminded of this on my problems with finishing my No Art Punk entry. Writing up the adventure is half the job because there is this process of translation and editing. Here we've got a very clear map. It's quite decoratively pleasant. This is level 3, and here it's got undead. It's got gnolls. It does have a white at level 3, which is not wholly dissimilar to Jeff's concept. This is a... we don't have much sense of what the story is here, other than there's some gnolls in one part of it. Beyond that, you know, there's some random encounters. There's a sand trap, there's a chatty king crab who buys and sells things. He's 5 HD giant crab. There's an ochre jelly in one place. There's some hidden treasure. This seems slight, and the final room, the treasure hoard, has 10,000 gold. This seems slightly more in keeping, certainly 10,000 gold. With it's a third level adventure. There's a few hidden bits. A bit like, in a sense, it felt like that Cloud Giant layer pushed towards kooky OSE. It wasn't quite as far as Plungent Mage, but it reminded me of that. This definitely, with the Talking King Crab, this is and the Monster Zoo feel hits a few of the, when you add them together, hits some of that kooky BX OSE feel. Not that those are individually kooky OSE, but I think you can tell the sentiment, the sense here is in that zone. Why do the gnolls live here? Why are there's a blocked tomb. That's why the gnolls haven't found the grand tomb. There's nothing in there. There's a secret tomb with an empty coffin and some barley seeds. Certainly spots. It fits as an old school type in terms of how much the treasure is located in one place, and the sense of a Gygaxian naturalism, if we want to put it that way. So yes, this is the Death Talon layer by John Nash, and I would say again, I think all of these can be dropped in so far, and I think here again you have it's hitting certain tropes and types. In fact, all of them have hit tropes and types. I think the Tomb of Rasanatep has most clearly gone down a genre path, and the other two have hit certain kinds of, this is a D&D set of tropes path. Ettercap's Cottage, AD&D Osric, our first AD&D, 3rd to 5th level. This one, I'll say up front, here's the maps. This is some sort of layer within 3 trees run by a matron Ettercap. There's lots of Ettercaps and spiders, that's the theme. Strong theming, strong D&D theming certainly, and it's like Rasanatep, and though it's more of a D&D trope, Ettercaps are a D&D thing, it certainly hits the trope hard. That's to say, it hits the monster trope part of, this is an Ettercap, what would an Ettercap live in? This is your Book of Layers thing. Rasanatep is, what is the haunt of a low-level Xylothan haunt? Bum bum. But yes, the map is not massive, it is lettered rather than numbered. I guess it's 13 rooms, 13, whatever it is, 12, 13, how you count, depending how you count. The rooms, there's some interesting bits and pieces. You've got, I'd say it's AD&D, there is not much treasure, so that's the number one thing is, here the bedchamber has basically the treasure there, which you can see the top value thing pretty much is a 1200 GP piece of jewellery. This feels rando generated, it may not be. It has some nice bits of treasure. Spider brooch, Berrican cast, spider climbing web, 1 a day each, and there's a scroll. Given the spider brooch is a unique item, we need an XP value for it, and that is a shame. This is, by the way, by Scott Markley, from the Gloomy Forest. So again, there's just a sense that this could be... how far has this been designed in play for AD&D, and how far is it conceptually, only conceptually for AD&D? Obviously, I know playtesting can be hard with these things. Lots of spiders. There is a thing that when you're outside, if you wait at all, you get every 1d3 rounds, some spiders appear. If you're 4th level average, that could be a pretty nasty setup. And I know the point there is to put pressure into going in or leaving. There's a Baba Yaga thing here, by the way, as well, in fact, in terms of how that Smedman module works, in terms of if you want to go in, it's a target, you're meant to go in. Yeah, I think there's a couple of unclear relations between things here. I found, and maybe this is just me, but I read through and I was like, okay, so all this information about the web architecture, that's good. Form protection for, okay, I kind of understand. I'm struggling to piece it all together, but maybe it'll become clearer. Spider silk, not valued, by the way, because there are several bolts of spider silk, which creates special armor, which is essentially a +1. It's fine. no XP value on it. But yeah, I think I was like, okay, so I'm kind of trying to work out how all this map stuff comes together. That's complicated, surprisingly complicated in terms of the exact descriptions, and the theme is very strong, but it is therefore quite tough. The spider thing, and the treasure is a bit marginal. I think again, like this Tomb of Rasanatep, we have a really strong monster lair entry. It has a real sense of itself. There is a setup which, when you turn up, she's shouting at you. I guess that's fine. It's unnecessary, but it's fine as a setup. But it's something where it sets up, pushing you into a certain kind of interaction with the site, and yeah, that. So there's a bit of a mixed bag there. Again, though, if you are willing to, as with some of the others, correct the treasure or just file off the edges to put it into your world, I think you have a good Ettercap layer here. I like the idea of a matron Ettercap. I think that's very strong. Finally for today, Vance Atkins of Leicester's Ramble, which is an interesting blog. What happened to Brother Eustace for low-level parties? This is system neutral. The map is by Dyson. You can see it is a 9-room map. So a caveat here, being system neutral, based on what I've said, and especially the fact that in a couple of these cases you're like, this is BX? What's the magic worth? How is this being weighted for XP? What are the assumptions about the monsters? Xylothan certainly even more so for that, because I'm like, I don't even, the Thoblin, I guess that's a Thule, I don't know, but like, what's going on? System neutral products are basically there for BX or OD&D at best. In my experience, I'm not saying this is. What I'm saying is, when I read that, what I know is someone is in that sector of the OSR generally, and so I have a caution about that. The map it's a smaller, kind of simpler diced map than the other, but it has a different thing going on. It's linear, but it has a particular linear gimmick. By linear, I mean it's linear in a Melan diagram sense. Everything is just a branch off the other thing, pretty much, other than this one choice. There's no loops. There's nothing funky going on. Compared, say, to the Death Talon layer, with its gnolls on one side and in the barracks area, and then it's got these zombies in a sealed tomb, etc., etc. This is much simpler. This is fewer than half the rooms of that, in fact. But yes, we are given a useful setup. It maybe need to be adapted to your campaign. What happens if you don't have something like Père Nicolas could say Brother Eustace has gone missing, to it searching a cave or ruin with some caravan guards. But I think most things are going to be fine. I think you just drop this in and you're mostly going to be fine. I should say, by the way, the same thing for system neutral low-level parties is also irritating. You have to guess yourself somewhat. Skeletons, goblins, you're talking first, second level there. Snakes, 1d3 snakes, maybe second level in most editions. A trap with weak poison that can be negated, 1d4 plus a potential 1d6 secondish level again, maybe first level. The crab spiders are not irrelevantly tough, I guess, theoretically, but you get the idea. You have to interpret it yourself and work out how to put it in. Now, if you're upfront creating a world, then actually maybe it's okay because you put stuff in, you work out the location. This is only 2 hours from town, so this is really, you'd think, first level territory. But you're allowed to say, look, there is stuff that's dangerous in my world, and the players have to judge it. The player-led, player judgment-based model of D&D is what we're talking about. So I'm not sniffing at that, but I just mean in terms of it's a process for the DM to work out if I want to use this on the fly, or if I want to place this, how do I do so? Yes, anyway. There isn't a thing here, by the way, you always have an encounter, which is always an interesting choice. Yeah, you've got some descriptive stuff. The scent of burnt flesh and blood greets the nose, the charred, dismembered body of a guard, blah, blah, blah. The door is scorched and burned, and in spite of its condition, it's difficult to open as locked because Eustace and the other guard are there. And the point is, there are some brand new drakes downstairs, the chitin drakes, who have certain powers. They're HD6, and there are 1d2 of them downstairs. Their damage isn't that bad, especially even if there's two of them. But you can be paralysed for 1d6 hits, d6 rounds, and they have that's off the bite, and they have flaming liquid 3d6 fire damage. This is pretty nasty, and I wonder whether the optimal player approach here, and this is an interesting thing because this scenario made me think about this, is to think we are some first and second level mooks. Our thief is second level, the rest of us are first level, or whatever. The cleric's second level maybe as well. And this sounds really tough. Maybe we should go take back Eustace and the surviving caravan guard, and we will go and get like 5 guys to come and help us, and we will just mob them. It might create different choices based on the fact that there's something dangerous nearby, and you know, it sounds dangerous. As it is, if the players fight it at, say, second level, it's going to be dangerous. 4 characters and 3 henchmen. That's going to be a tough battle, because, because we're not talking about trivial hit points. We're talking about 27 hit points, and your output versus AC3. How much is your second level party getting done? Yeah, your elf ranger with a longsword at second, who somehow hits second level or has high strength stands a chance, but that's tough. I think that is a he needs a 15 to hit still. It is a tough combat. I think it creates a player problem that's maybe not completely obvious from the off. It gives us a new monster though, so that's fun. I like the monster design, by the way. I think 1d4, 2d6 in layer. This is only 1d2, it's a small layer, obviously. But with, it's classic small dragon territory. How do you have stuff that is like dragons or whatever without being overwhelming? And in another case here, in Death Talon layer, we have a dragon at the end of it, the eponymous Death Talon, for instance. 5 HD, young black dragon, BX style. So how do you have those things fit in here? This does not feel super like a dragon's lair, I should say. Here, it does kind of lead logically to the fact it's these Drake Slayers, but again, similar to both the Cloud Giant layer without a Cloud Giant and the Monster Zoo Death Talon layer, these are much more environments with a few different things going on. Here there's a trap, and here there's some crab spiders. Maybe the one thing to say with Brother Eustace is that beyond the chitin drakes and the forced encounter on the way, there aren't actually very many. One of which, by the way, the hunters are presumably friendly, if you're not crazy. Reaction check. But this is not a high action oriented delve. It is something you can probably do in one session. 9 rooms, and the rooms are simple rooms on a simple map. But there's not loads of stuff going on. Similarly, there's not really a ton of treasure. You've got this one thing, system neutral. Is that 1000 SP divided by 10 or by 20 to determine XP? But you've got a few small pieces of treasure. You've got a potion of healing, and you have the chitin drakes who have some gems, 250 GP. It's treasure light, and it's simple enough to set up, being able to finish it in a night, but maybe that functions as just a ceiling on it as well. Is that there's not loads of stuff going on in it. But anyway, those are the first 5 alphabetically. I thought they were all fun and good. and can fulfill roles. Certainly, I think you have a good low-level danger undead layer. You've got um, a really interesting etiquette matron layer, and then you have a couple of other kind of types. You've got one is the abandoned Marie Celested house. In this case, it's high level, the only one of these that's been high level so far, and that's for a cloud giants fishing lakes with magic and stuff. There's a tiny puzzle element there and stuff, but it fits that trope. And then you have a monster zoo with a dragon lair near some gnolls, near some sealed undead, that kind of thing. And then finally, we end up with what is really, though you're fighting the chitin drakes, it is a situation quest, not a situation exploitation. You know, all the factions are fighting, but a situation quest. This problem has come up, and there might be something where you want to go and help. So you can get friendship out of Père Nicolas or whatever else. Especially given I don't think he actually offers you any reward. So, yes. Anyway, I will do the next block of reviews later in the week or early next week. And yeah, tell me which of these looks like you would use it most quickly in the comments. Till next time.